Good morning once again. We are back with Mr. Walter Vengesai from Padang Mkuhleni Men's Forum. We are in deliberating and understanding gender-based violence and its complications and impact on the society. So before we had internet problems and we couldn't hear each other. So we welcome you back again. So Mr. Vengesai will start from the beginning. What is gender-based violence?
Good morning, listeners. Good morning, viewers, and good morning, Dennis. Thank you for having us on 263 chat. I think the definition of gender-based violence is quite broad, but I'll try to localize it as much as I can. I think when we talk about gender-based violence, we are talking about violence that is directed at a specific group of people because of their gender, or it can be violence that is directed at a disproportionately at a group of people. That can be gender-based violence as well. But coming down here to Zimbabwe, just trying to localize it, a lot of people, when they refer to gender-based violence, they mean violence against women and girls. And that is because of the disproportionate nature in which women and girls are affected by gender-based violence in our country. Just randomly speaking, I think more than 80% of reported cases of gender-based violence are those perpetrated against women by men. So it follows that when people talk about gender-based violence, they are then talking about violence that is directed at women and girls because they are the ones that are mostly affected by gender-based violence. I think when we're growing up, we can remember that any toothpaste was called Colgate because it was the most popular one. So it follows that the most when most people refer to gender-based violence, they are mostly referring to violence against women and girls. But by definition, it means just violence that is directed at any specific person or a group of people disproportionately compared to the rest of the other people and based on their gender.
So which means men are also included, right?
Yes, men are also included. Men also suffer gender-based violence. I think that should be very, very clear from the beginning.
All right.
But
why were there disparities? Why were there disparities? Women suffer more.
Yes, women and girls suffer more.
All right. Why are there disparities in the number of cases recorded by the police and other independent gender-based organizations?
I think, in my view, there is a gap in terms of how we are coordinating the response to gender-based violence at a national level within the country. I think we need to come up with mechanisms that reconcile the different information that is coming from the different actors within the gender-based violence referral pathway. I know the Ministry of Women Affairs, they are coming up with a database, working maybe together with UNFPA. I know there are efforts that are being done to make sure that all the information is reconciled so that we have the same figures, we have the same information from all the stakeholders. But currently what is happening is that we have a lot of service providers that are not maybe linked to the national GBV response. What am I talking about? I'm talking about an organization such as Padare, and which receives cases of GBV and offer psychosocial support to the victims and also the survivors. We may not be submitting that data to the National GBV Task Force or to the National Referral Pathway. So that then results in different sets of statistics coming out there. Because as an individual organization, it would be correct to say that in August, Padare received 250 cases of gender-based violence, of which those cases did not go to the police. So you understand now, there are a lot of service providers, but at a national level, there is still a lot of work that can be done in terms of making sure that we are speaking with one voice, all the information is compiled, and all the information is shared in a systematic way that gives us a true picture of what is really happening within our country. The police are receiving cases, they are dealing with them. Civil society organizations are receiving cases, they are dealing with them. So then this then provides different sets of information with regards to the same issue. Not to say that the information will be wrong. I know churches are receiving the information, receiving cases of gender-based violence, and they're dealing with them as well, and a lot of other actors. So I think there is that gap, which I know certain actors within the sector, especially the Ministry of Women Affairs and the UN agencies such as UN Women and UNFPA are trying to coordinate so that we can have a true picture of what is really going on within our country in terms of gender-based violence.
You talked about men. There's a school of thought that men don't report gender-based violence. Why is that so?
Yeah, just imagine your father running to the police and saying that I've been beaten up by my wife. Um, and imagine what the police would say. Imagine whoever is listening would say, a grown man like you have been, how were you beaten by your wife? I'm just trying to paint a picture of the patriarchal nature of our society and the different gender um, gender expectations that are there. Some of the characteristics of men that are there are that a man should be strong, a man should not cry, a man should be stronger than a woman, and it affects how we behave. It affects our socialization. So as men growing up, men are socialized to be strong, men are socialized not to cry, men are socialized also not to generally speak about things that hurt them, to be emotional about things. So that affects how men behave and how men solve problems as as they grow up as well, and as they face such problems. So I think that is the main reason. Patriarchal socialization is the main reason why men mostly don't report cases. It's not only about reporting cases of gender-based violence, but in general, men have low help seeking behavior. Men don't want to seek help when they are confronted with challenges, mostly. They are not open to seek help. That's why you discover that there are very few platforms where men can really share how they feel exactly and how they are affected by certain issues. That's why at Padare we have what we call Padare chapters, which are safe spaces for men to discuss such issues without judgment, without them. Yes, yes. So yeah, I think our internet is acting up, but I can see we are back. So maybe that's the reason why a lot of men are not free to report cases. And then there's also the service side. You go to health institutions. mostly men are not comfortable to go there because of the treatment that they get sometimes when they go there for help. The same with GBV service providers as well. Um, when GBV service providers, some of them are not really trained enough to handle or to do away with that socialization that I was talking about.
I think we are facing another
There,
technical
there are
internet.
complaints that it, and as a result, they then do not want to report the cases because they are afraid that they will be judged, they are afraid that they will be laughed at. So those are some of the issues that we are also, as an organization, trying to make sure that our referral pathway in terms of uh, gender-based violence, there is non-judgment in terms of whoever brings the cases. They should be able to seek help, to get help in a professional manner.
Thank you so much. We are looking at a household setup, a community setup. How does gender-based violence uh, impact impact on the child's development?
Yeah, I think there is a school of thought which says that the children learn more from what they see and not what they are told. So I think children living in an environment that is full of violence will also cultivate that kind of behavior in them. They are socialized to think that it's okay to use violence to resolve conflicts. And there are also psychological effects that result from them seeing violence being perpetrated on their loved one. It may be the mother, it may be the father, whoever is receiving the violence, that has got negative psychological implications on the child's development, and it can affect or it can scar that child um, for life. I'm talking here about physical violence. Then you go on to issues like sexual violence, which is also part of gender-based violence. I think children are the ones that are mostly affected by sexual abuse. And we know that the majority of sexual abuse cases happen within family settings, or it's perpetrated by people who the children know. So I think that also affects children for life if they do not seek help, or if they are unable to identify that such kind of behavior is unacceptable, and that there is a referral pathway that they can use in terms of reporting maybe to teachers or to adults or to the police, so that help can come in, so that the perpetrators can also be brought to book. I think I should make it very clear that gender-based violence is a crime, and the perpetrators should actually be brought to book, and the perpetrators should be put in places where they'll get rehabilitation, where they'll get help. Because in my experience, I've realized that gender-based violence does not end on its own. The cycle will continue. It may end here and there, but the cycle will continue. So there is need for help to be provided. There is need for that cycle of violence to be broken, so that whoever the survivor is, they can also get time to heal. They can also get time to get help.
Yeah, very true. In a joint report by UNFP and Project, they recorded 80% cases of psychological abuse in July during the lockdown. Can you shed more light on psychological abuse?
Yeah, that's one of the most complicated forms of gender-based violence, and in my view, it does actually more harm, or it's at par with even physical violence. So psychological abuse ndo yatinoti pachishona kushungurudzwa, and that can be done in a lot of ways. It may be silent treatment. A person may just decide not to talk to the other person. A person may act in ways that they know will hurt the other person. So, especially in a marriage setting or in a family setting during the lockup, this can be a worst form of violence against the other. I know what hurts my wife, and I know how to press those buttons. And if I press those buttons on a daily basis, a person can actually have hypertension or BP because of my behavior. I may not eat the food that she's cooking. I may refuse to hold the baby, knowing exactly which the baby is mine, but I may just refuse to accept the baby or to hold the baby in the house, so that it traumatizes the other person whom the violence is perpetrated against. So I think it's one of the worst forms, and it also does a lot of harm to the other person, because people would want to see, normally people would want to see the wounds, to say, if you are saying there's violence in this house, what happened? Did he beat you? Did she beat you? But this one is very difficult to detect, even for the survivors. For them to seek help, it's very difficult for them to seek help, because there is really no evidence to say someone is perpetrating that kind of violence. But I think it's one of the worst. And it's very sad that the report is saying there's an 80% increase in that kind of violence, especially in a lockdown setting where a person can't really escape or can't really physically get help from the other people. Churches, we know churches are now mainly being done online. That's one of the outlet many people uses to deal with the psychological abuse. We know social gatherings where people just used to go and talk. They were banned because of the lockdown. So it's really bad that we have that situation. But there are also other platforms that have been opened up here at Padare, and other service providers. I know we are providing online counseling where a person just has to show that they are interested or they are facing a problem. And then our counselors are calling them back, they are talking to them, they are comforting them, they are providing psychosocial support. I also know other service providers, they've got toll-free lines where people can call in just to say, just to talk about it as an initial stage in terms of trying to deal with that problem of psychological abuse.
Thank you so much. So the next question is, what were the major issues driving gender-based violence over the lockdown?
I think from our side, from Padare's view and from the information that we have received so far, I think the state of the economy has contributed to a lot of psychological and other forms of violence within the households. Most people's livelihoods have been disturbed as a result of the lockdown, as a result of COVID-19. You may be aware that the majority of our people earn their living through informal trading. The borders were closed. So, but we have a situation where a lot of parents are finding it difficult to feed their families, and a lot of breadwinners or former breadwinners are now failing to cope under these circumstances. If I was selling tomatoes and now I can't sell tomatoes, if I was selling my wares from South Africa and now I can't sell my wares from South Africa, the rent is needed, food is needed, fees for the kids is needed. So all these issues are bringing a lot of pressure on families, and conflicts can result. A lot of conflicts have resulted from that. As a father, I'm expected to pay the rent. If I can't pay the rent, my wife will be saying, "You have to pay the rent. You have to buy the food." And where am I going to get the money? So we already have a conflict around the issue of resources. Then also, uh, just the lockdown situation. It's not healthy for people to stay locked up. You know, some couples had not spent 24 hours together continuously in a very long time. And all of a sudden, you are now spending the whole week together. There was a routine before where I come home around 9 in the evening and I say goodbye around 6 a.m. And then I come back in the evening again. But now I'm staying at home. I'm discovering things that I have not discovered before. So this is how you spend your day. That can result in conflict. So just the lockdown situation has not been very healthy or conducive in terms of conflicts being trying to be avoided by a lot of people as well.
With reference to the period in question, the lockdown, who were the main perpetrators of gender-based violence?
I think from the cases that we received at Padare, mostly men remain the leading perpetrators of gender-based violence. We have cases of men who have come and who have said that they have been receiving GBV from their partners, but those cases are fewer than those that are coming from women. So from the period of April up to now, men remain the leading perpetrators of GBV against women from the cases that we have received here at Padang.
So, as an organization, what were the major challenges that you faced in reaching out to the victims in the lockdown period?
Um, I think providing psychosocial support is a very complex endeavor. It needs a person-to-person interaction because you are talking about a very sensitive process where someone will be telling you about intimate details of what is happening in their lives. So trying to do that online or over the phone with someone who is crying, with someone who is saying, "This is actually happening now. I need help now." I think that was very, very difficult. And also, just the transition from physical interactions that we used to have to the online. I think that was difficult. We did not have the infrastructure. I can tell you that we have been trying to get toll-free lines. We have been trying to get a lot of things, but that can make our work easier. But it has been difficult because of the lockdown. And we are also very sad that some of our clients, they cannot access the services because of the lockdown. It was difficult for people to move, especially during the initial stages. So if you want to go to the police, if you wanted to go to a shelter, if you wanted to talk to someone physically, that was also difficult. I think that was the major challenge, and also the issue of resources for us to continue to do our work. We are very grateful for the support that we got from our partners to continue to do this work. But there are a lot of cases that required our presence. People actually going there, and we have done that in a few cases. But it's expensive to drive to Southly Park, to drive to Harare South, to drive Epworth to deal with some of these issues physically in a way that is safe for everyone, considering that we are living in a COVID environment. So there is also the issue of PPE that is now necessary, but we didn't have the resources. So these are some of the challenges that we faced when we were doing our work.
Uh, in light of all the challenges that you have stated out, how can every Zimbabwean play their part in ensuring that there is zero tolerance to gender-based violence?
Yes, I think we just need to have that zero tolerance in all communities, zero tolerance to GBV in all communities. If people understand that gender-based violence is a crime, gender-based violence destroys lives, then that would be a good starting point. From there, um, we need to make it our business. Gender-based violence is everyone else's business, because I remember when I was growing up, gender-based violence was not my business, because it was classified as an intimate family issue that must be resolved at that level. So when a husband is abusing their wife, people would not interfere because they would say it's a private family matter. I think what we need to do is to get rid of such thinking and start taking gender-based violence as our business. If my neighbor is a gender-based violence perpetrator, it's my duty to report them to the police. It's my duty to talk to them, to try and engage them, to advise them what they are doing is wrong and it destroys life, and also to advise them that they can get help from organizations such as Padari in terms of rehabilitation from that kind of behavior. So it's everyone's duty. If you don't want to get involved directly, the police can accept anonymous tips in terms of cases of gender-based. You can report anonymously. My neighbor is abusing their husband. My neighbor is abusing their children. My neighbor is abusing their wife. That can suffice for the police to take action against the perpetrator. Organizations such as ours, civil society organization, also accept anonymous tips. If you are not willing to come forward to say this is what is happening, just give us the details to say my neighbor is abusing their wife, and we can try to intervene in a way that the perpetrator can be rehabilitated. There's also that option. I know a lot of um, women may be in a situation where they are saying, I can't get my husband, who is a perpetrator, to be arrested because he is the provider or the breadwinner of the family. There are avenues that can be taken. A person can choose to report and say, I don't want this person to be arrested, but I just need them to get help so that this behavior can stop. As I said before, GBV is a cycle, and that cycle, if it is not broken by professionals, it's likely going to continue. So what we are more interested in is for a person who is a perpetrator to get help, for a person who is a perpetrator to know that it's not too late. Even if you have been doing it for years, you can come, we can talk, and we can provide you with enough help so that you can be rehabilitated, so that you can live with your family in a more fruitful way in which no one is harmed. So that is what we are interested in.
Thank you so much, Mr. Walter Vengesai, for coming and gracing the conversation. Thank you. That was Mr. Walter Vengesai from Padare Nkutleni Men's Forum. They advocate against gender-based violence. We thank you so much, viewers, for listening and keeping in touch. And we thank you so much for your comments. Please like our page on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, 263 Chart, and subscribe to our YouTube page, 263 Chart. And don't forget to visit our website, www.263chart.com. Thank you so much.